Hey everybody, Matt here, and I wanted to tell you about something cool my publisher is offering if you pre-order my forthcoming book, Filthy Rich Politicians. After you do that, go to filthyrichbook.com and sign up, enter your receipt number, and I will send you an autographed book plate. You will also have access to Chapter 1 and the intro. You can download that immediately today, as well as access to a podcast where I talk about the book. So, pre-order Filthy Rich Politicians and go to filthyrichbook.com today to get these bonuses. Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
I know our DMZ fans love it to hear my dog bark. Nothing is more soothing and fulfilling than the sound of a dog. All dog sounds are mellifluous. But I am on the front porch today for those who can't see. So apologies if you have to hear car noises instead of dog noises.
So far, so good. You look good, you sound good, and I like the outdoor thing. I think, it's every once in a while we mix it up, Bill. So I like it. And by the way, how was your Father's Day?
It was an all right Father's Day. Actually, my sister's family was visiting, so my sister, her husband, and their son. I orchestrated a bike ride to the 80s era arcade that's across the river in the town of Hadley. So I played copious amounts of Q*bert and Frogger and Donkey Kong. And my favorite barbecue places is open for the season, so we got up there. I got some barbecue brisket French fries, as well as a pulled pork plate, the side of baked beans and cornbread. So I can't complain.
It sounds like a pretty good day, if you ask me. That's a good Father's Day. I like that.
And what did you do?
So I had to take my kids away to sleepaway camp.
Nice.
Which sounds like a good idea, but it was a little sad for me. I think my wife and one of my sons were like, this is great. Let's separate for a while. But one of my sons and I are more, I think, sensitive, and it was a little tough.
Is this the first sleepaway camp experience?
I never really did much. I never did a sleepaway camp, really. I'm sort of.
For your kids, is it their first time?
No, my oldest boy a few years ago went to a sleepaway camp. But they go to, other than that, they go to a ton of camps and stuff during the day. So they're used to being thrust into environments where they don't know people. The last time my son went to a sleepaway camp, we met at our church in the morning, said our goodbyes. He got onto a bus with people he knew from our church.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like pulling a Band-Aid off. It was very clean. Mm-hmm. This was a little messier. It's, we drove like an hour and a half to this camp. It was in the evening. It was like 6 p.m. All the parents are like dropping their kids off at the same time. I'm going into the dorm and like helping him, make his bed and put his clothes away. And there's like kind of chaos. There's kids and parents everywhere. And it just sort of lingers on for a while. And it was not like pulling a Band-Aid off. I mean, he didn't, there was no, nobody threw a fit. Nobody started crying. I mean, I almost did, but there wasn't any, there wasn't like a scene, but it was just like a low grade, it was a little tough. And then the good news is, I'll go ahead and tell you, I'll unburden myself. So the good news is that we had crabs while we were down there as a family. We went and got steamed crabs and peel and eat shrimp and all the stuff that I love as a Marylander, as a native Marylander. And then my kids are gone. My wife is in California. So I'm here alone all week, which is good. I'm sort of getting to work on my book, planning to talk about it. And I'm also doing things that I've been meaning to do for a long time. So I went to visit my uncle yesterday, who has dementia. And so that was also an unsettling experience, Bill. I don't know if you've had that experience. So it's been a weird, tough post Father's Day week.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about your uncle. I know that can be very rough. Um, but I just so you know, I do I have to jump to a meeting at 10, so we should keep this kind of tight business
Oh
wise.
yeah, okay. Sorry, I was filibustering and trying not to get to business, but we should talk politics, and compared to talking about what I was just talking about, it will be a relief. So let's spin the wheel, Bill, and you tell me where to start.
Well, it seems you know, I've been up all night writing about Republicans and the need for the non-Trump candidates to have a debate. Uh, at one point that I said was, it's very hard if you're a candidate not named Trump to call attention to yourself when everything about this campaign is about Trump.
Yeah.
This isn't an internal debate about who has the best tax plan. This is centered on, you know, do we stand by Trump or do we cut Trump loose? That is the question. And so, for our DMZ purposes, it's hard for us to talk about anything else but
Yeah,
Trump
I love it.
when Trump does a big interview on Fox News.
Steve Forbes comes busting through the wall like the Kool-Aid guy talking about the flat tax. Ain't gonna happen. Look, I think it will be about Trump, but Trump is the defining issue of our of our time, perhaps. And I think that Chris Christie, for example, can get ahead by talking about Trump. And I think other people like Ron DeSantis are going to learn that trying to have it both ways isn't quite as easy and quite as clear. But I don't know if you saw this, Bill. Chris Christie was on Charlie Sykes's podcast, the Bulwark podcast, this week. And Christie made the same point that I made to you, I think, last week, which is that Trump won't be able to avoid these debates forever. He may sit one or two out, but his ego is going to suck him in. So I do think that
Yeah,
eventually.
that sounds like hope is not a plan.
Well, look, I I agree with you on that. That there's a lot of happy talk, and there's a lot of like, how many times did people say Trump's not gonna really, he doesn't really want to win, so he's gonna drop out, or like I've heard BS all the time that I don't believe. This is my BS, and I actually do believe it. I think it's based on experience of watching Trump's behavior.
Well, you saw what Trump said on this subject this week on
Was this
Fox
on
News.
our friend Bret Baier's much acclaimed interview?
Yes.
So remind me of this.
So he was asked point blank, and I'm condensing because Trump went on a lot of tangents. But he said,
"Wait, that's not the Donald Trump I know. Donald Trump does not get discursive, Bill. He is very to the point." But okay, continue.
When you're 40 points up, why would I let these people take shots at me? Why would I allow a hostile network, Fox, and people at 1% and 2% and 0% to be hitting with questions all night? I don't think it's fair. And I just thought, here's Trump, who is like clearly dissembling about the documents case. It's not like Trump is, known for his consistent honesty, but he has that lack of filter where sometimes he just blurts out the obvious, and it's kind of refreshing. He's not giving you a BS answer where I skip the debates. He's saying, and why should I have 40 points in? Which is a perfectly reasonable political argument.
I think it's logical and rational and prudent strategy, and I don't think he's going to stick to it. And is it not within keeping of Donald Trump's reputation that he says things and then doesn't follow through and then does the opposite of what he says he's going to do?
Well, he's not a man of his word. I mean, if he felt the need to pivot, he'd pivot and make up a phony excuse.
Yeah,
but
we'll see what he always says. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, he didn't quite say he wouldn't do it. He did give himself wiggle room, but if he is cognizant of the argument, I mean, there is no reason for him to do it. He does not need to do it.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine he would suffer politically. That is, I mean, 40 points by a little bit a stretch. I mean, there are certain polls like that, but it's probably more like a 30-point lead.
But this is like me saying, I am cognizant that carbs are not good for me. I am aware I will not look good in my bathing suit if I eat this pizza. But then you put that pizza in front of me, Bill, and it's going to be hard to turn down that pizza. And I
don't think debates
Donald
are that.
Trump,
I don't think debates are nearly as much fun as a slice of pizza.
Bill, Donald Trump craves attention. He craves attention, and he also is so fearful of anything that might even, in the slightest, portray him as being not manly, not a winner. I don't think he can resist.
I think he's highly resistible. I think he's coasting. I think I think there's no penalty to pay. I think it's implausible he would like drop from a 30-point lead to a 10-point lead or a tie if he doesn't debate. You know, we have the Katie Hobbs example. I mean, Katie Hobbs could skip Kerry Lake and win narrowly. What is the risk of sacrificing your 30-point lead by skipping a debate?
All right, you may be. Let me just put this on the record because we're going to know in a month or two, right? I'll put this on the record. You may be right, but I want to be clear about what you are arguing and what I am arguing. You are arguing that Donald Trump is going to do the rational, logical thing based on smart strategic advice. I am arguing that Trump is going to behave like an animal based on emotion and whatever. Like the carnal nature of Donald Trump.
I don't think Trump is going to lack attention by skipping the debate. I don't think he feels that this is the only way the spotlight can be on him. I mean, I think it was a little bit different in 2016. He skipped one and did a rally, and the rally wasn't that well watched, and then he scurried back to the debates. But I think the dynamic now is very, very different. I mean, he is just completely lapping this field.
What if there is a debate and there's a fight and Chris Christie hits DeSantis hard and makes fun of DeSantis for being weak and for sucking up to Trump, and it's a big fight. Nikki Haley tries to get in. Christie smacks her down, figuratively speaking, of course. Now the conversation's about Chris Christie, at least for a day, right? It's not about Donald Trump. Can he take that? Can he take that?
Trump said something else interesting in the interview that hasn't gotten as much attention. He was asked a lot about DeSantis, and I'm not looking at the verbatim quote here, but Baier asked him, you're hitting DeSantis so much. Is it because you see him as a threat? And Trump was like, well, he's in second place. I mean, I'm ahead by a lot, but he's in second place. I like to hit the guy in second place. He's sinking like a rock, so maybe he'll be third or fourth soon, and someone else will be in second place, and I'll hit that guy. It
wouldn't surprise me, actually, if DeSantis falls out of second place, and he's up big. I mean, I think, what is it? Trump's at like I don't know, 50% or 40% or something, and DeSantis is at like 20 or something, and then everyone else is like at 2 or 3.
Well, let me pull up the real clear average quickly. So real clear average is Trump 51.9, DeSantis 21.1, Pence 5.8, Haley 3.8, Scott 3.6, Christie 2.3. Now there's a couple of polls recently, national, that have DeSantis below 20. So, he was actually kind of doing a lot of low 20s and then some of the teens. And then CNN came in the other day with DeSantis at 26, which was staying flat for him compared to the previous CNN poll. So it's not like he's booming. But there's certainly a plausibility of DeSantis dropping below 20 in the average. He's only at 21. The question is, can someone else eclipse him again to double digits? I mean, that's what's more.
I mean, I think Tim Scott has the chance for a moment. Vivek Ramaswamy.
Oh, Vivek is. We're going to stop talking about Vivek, I think, in like 2 weeks.
I'm about to launch a Vivek podcast. just about Vivek.
He has got
Bill,
nothing to offer.
you
But
mentioned,
let me say one thing here.
oh yeah, go ahead.
So let's say Trump skips the debate. I think I said this last week. I think DeSantis then skips the debate too. I don't think DeSantis wants to be the punching bag. And he'll say, well, if Trump's not in it, what's the point of me being in it? Now, the point I make in this article that I just drafted last night, it's not up yet, is it's so hard to get a moment where where a long shot candidate gets this crush of media attention and catapults him or herself into the top tier, even like, middle tier. And most of the time when this has happened in recent primaries is in debates. We talk about debates never moving the needle, and that's often true. But that has been where Republican long shots get their moment. And that was even true in 2015 with the undercard debate, where the field was so big, they had a main event and an undercard. And in the first undercard was when Carly Fiorina had a better than expected undercard performance, and her polls moved up, and she got into the main event. So to me, that's an argument for if Trump and DeSantis punk out, for the rest of the field to say, hey, RNC, don't pull the plug on this. You scheduled it. You made the deal with Fox. You hold it. We're going to be there. And, maybe Christie or Pence or Haley or Scott do something that gets a degree of attention and they move up. So your question was, what would Trump do? I think Trump would then go punch that person if they did well enough that they eclipsed DeSantis, and he'd be fine with that because he's still 30 points ahead either way. It's only a real problem for him if he sinks below 30, if it becomes something like, 10 points or single digits, and it seems like Trump is really floundering, then maybe you have an excuse to jump back in. But otherwise, he really seems to me like he has little to worry about.
So the Bret Baier interview had a couple of very good moments, I thought. But Bret Baier did a great job, I think. One of them was where Bret Baier mentioned all of the people that worked in the Donald Trump administration who are now not supporting Donald Trump and saying horrible things about Donald Trump. I thought that was a really good, I don't want to say gotcha moment, but it was a very, I think, telling and significant moment.
Well, Eric, I agree it was compelling to watch. Do you think it compels a soft Trump voter to reconsider staying on the Trump bandwagon?
I doubt it, sadly, because, again, people aren't necessarily moved by logic. But as Morning Joe and Chris Christie have both kind of gone a step further and talked about Trump saying, as he's introducing Jim Mattis, saying he's like the greatest general since Patton, and then juxtaposing that with what Trump said about Mattis after the fact. And just logically speaking, rationally speaking, if Trump is really hiring the best people, the best and the brightest, and they all end up hating him and thinking he's not qualified or temperamentally suited to the job, then that says something about Trump. Like, either Trump is bad at hiring people and is hiring bad people for top positions, or he is hiring good people and he's the problem, right? I mean, there's no other option here. So I think, do voters think logically, rationally? Does that move them? Probably not most, but just from a debate standpoint, it's really hard to argue that Trump has painted himself in a corner here.
Oh, and I thought Trump's answers to it were unprepared. He wasn't expecting that question, or at least expecting it done in such a comprehensive and pointed way. He did not have a good response to it. If you were sort of grading him on points, you would grade him badly. But I think this race right now is a question between, is Trump such a liability for Republicans that we have to cut him loose and have a fresh face of this party? Or is Trump a threat to the deep state Democratic Party fourth estate Hydra, and we have to stand with Trump to slay that Hydra in the face of their politicization of the institutions of government.
Yeah.
And right now, it seems like, look, there's some movement in Trump's number over the course of the past year. He did sag after the midterm into more like the 40s, but then that popped up higher, over 50, once he got indicted and found liable of sexual abuse. So it seems like the attitude of the median voter of the party is, we have to stand with Trump in the face of this politicization. They all know what his administration was like. They were there.
Well, so, but I think you're right. I think Donald Trump is very, very, very likely to be the Republican nominee, but then he will go up against a Democrat. And that's when I think the questions that Bret Baier asked may be relevant, because there may be independent voters, swing voters who, unlike the Republicans, will be swayed by this sort of thing. And I have to say, if you compare what Bret Baier did to what CNN did with that town hall, I think what Bret Baier did was much more effective and illuminating. Getting, it's not in front of an audience. It's pre-recorded. Trump can't kind of play to the crowd. I just think that's the way to interview Trump if you're going to interview Trump.
Baier did an exceptional job in the interview, no question. But of course, that also allowed Trump to say, "You are hostile. Fox is a hostile network."
But I don't think that is. I don't think that was plausible, because Bret Baier seems very nice.
Of course, it's not compelling to the average person. Well, it's just sort of funny because I went back and looked at a lot of past debates.
Bret Baier didn't seem hostile.
Correct. I went back and looked at a lot of past debates. What does a Republican do in a debate to break out? We had a couple of examples where in 2012, Michelle Bachmann had a good debate. I think it was the first debate, it was her first debate. And I remember at the time thinking, like, what's so special about this debate? Like, she said, she delivered some lines very crisply. Barack Obama is a one-term president. And she talked about being a foster parent to 23 kids and stuff like that. And she had a boomlet out of that. She won the Iowa straw poll, a couple months later. Ben Carson. Ben Carson is the only, we were talking last week, once Donald Trump entered the race, he was almost instantly the front runner. He claimed the front runner slot before any debate, within weeks of entering the race. He entered in June. He was the front runner by July, and the first debate was August.
Yeah. And so let me just put this in context. I've seen people saying things like, "Hey, it's too early to know. We don't know anything. It's too early because at this point, Ben Carson was number one." And what you're saying is, yeah, technically that's true, but as soon as Trump entered, he went straight to number one.
Well, Carson did not start as number one. So at this point in June is around when Trump entered.
Right. He comes down the escalator.
Right. And we didn't realize at the time, but essentially the field was not set until he entered.
Yes.
Jeb Bush was barely a front runner. He was below 20% of support, leading by single digits over, I think, Scott Walker at this point. And Trump comes in. There's some forums that help him, really sort of communicate to Republicans, I'm in this for real. Takes a swipe against McCain. He benefits from that. Republicans like what they're saying. They're liking this style, and he explodes out of the gate. But in that, I think it was the first debate in August, Carson is barely a factor through 99% of the debate. And in the closing statement, he gives this riff about what he's done that no one else has done. He talks about separating Siamese twins and operating on babies in the womb, and that he's taken out half a brain, and then he said, although if you go to Washington, you might not think I was the first one to do that, and that gets a huge response. Like, that's it. That's all he did of note in that debate, and his polls start to move, and I think he has some other media appearances. He said some other controversial things that kind of keep him in the mix, and so his numbers keep rising in August, September, and I believe peaks I think he peaks October, September, October, and he's very briefly the front runner for he's over 3 days in November, and by this point in the fall, Trump starts laying into him. And then when Trump starts laying into him, Carson, falls backwards. So there was
I remember he compare him to a pedophile. And he talks about, Ben Carson in his book, I think it's called Gifted Hands or something. Carson talks about how he tried to stab a classmate with a knife, and but he hit the classmate's belt buckle.
Right.
And the knife broke, and Trump mocked that. Has anyone tried? Right. Is it
right?
You stab someone, the belt buckle is going to break it. Yeah.
I mean, both Bachman and Carson had their rise off of very little of substance, and couldn't take the heat once the heat came, and they fell backwards. Now, this is a long wind up to what I want to say about Trump and distribution of Fox here. A couple other examples are Gingrich and Cruz. Gingrich in 2012 and Cruz in 2016. I think I mentioned this last week. Both of them made their mark by attacking the debate moderators. Now, Gingrich was doing this like in almost every debate, but it wasn't getting a lot of attention until November of 2011. This is now after Bachman's faded. This is after Rick Perry has faded. This is after Herman Cain has faded. He had his moment. He had his 999 moment in the fall, but that got attacked, so he began to fade. Also, the sexual misconduct allegations. And this is actually the same debate. Perry had faded before the oops moment, but at the same debate of the oops moment, Gingrich is asked about what the media doesn't understand about the economy, and I think he sort of egged on this question because he was attacking the media as not understanding the economy, and he says something like, "Oh, I love it when humor is disguised as a question," and this is also during the time of Occupy Wall Street, and he says, why is the media going to ask how is Occupy Wall Street going to accomplish anything if business can't make enough money to create the park that they're standing in? And the crowd goes wild. And Frank Lentz did a focus group on Fox News that had no one was with Gingrich before the debate, and they were all with him after the debate. And like that moment was like the moment when the dials like went through the roof. And for that the month afterwards, Gingrich leads all the polls nationally after that debate. So there's this tried and true strategy and so Cruz does something.
And by the way, this is an aside. It has nothing to do with Gingrich's rise. But do you remember? This just came to me. I remember Newt, because I like Newt a lot. Newt was attacking Romney for being too anti-immigration, and Newt said something like, if a grandmother who came here 50 years ago can't stay, if Governor Romney wants to take her away, well, this isn't the America I know, or something like that. Yeah. It's just interesting how times change.
Well, I mean, Gingrich spoke with this veneer of authority, and that folks, people were like, I want to see that up against Barack Obama. They were getting excited about that notion of the media, what the spectacle would be like. It's not like they're wading through Gingrich's policy papers. They like the idea of Gingrich running circles around Barack Obama and him attacking the debate moderators made him feel like he could do that. Cruz, this is after, this is 2016. This is after the Ben Carson fade in November. Cruz does a thing where he's actually asked about the there was a debt limit deal in the fall of 2015. That was a bipartisan compromise, and Cruz opposed it. And he was being asked, why do you oppose it? Cruz ignores the question completely and attacks the debate moderators for giving negative questions to all the other candidates. He goes down the line and like caricatures what everyone's question is, and then it's like the Democrat question is all about how wonderful and handsome you are, and the crowd completely eats it up. And Cruz now he starts doing well nationally, but he takes the lead soon in Iowa. He wins Iowa. This is a November debate. He wins Iowa on February 1st. And the Morning Consult did an analysis later in November saying, Cruz is moving here and he hasn't spent a lot of money on ads yet. So this is clearly about the debates. So like attacking the media is something that Republican voters really eat up. No, Trump's taking it one level higher. I'm not going to do the debate because Fox is in the tank against me. And so,
that would be interesting if he really goes all in on that specific messaging point, that the debates are a tool used by the establishment. Just like the Department of Justice has been co-opted and become part of the deep state, these debates are tools used by the establishment to keep people like me down, and I'm not going to fall for it. And anyone who participates is playing their game. That would be maybe crazy enough to work. But the absurdity of saying that a Fox News debate, condoned and sanctioned by the RNC is somehow, a deep state left wing plot.
But to give him a little bit of credence here, I mean, what would happen at a Fox debate? I mean, they would ask tough questions.
But he went on Bret Baier's show. Why would he do that if he's not?
And receive tough questions. And I mean, just like any other debate, Fox, NBC, ABC, the debate moderators would ask questions designed to show daylight between the front runner and the other candidates to see if some fireworks would happen.
And it's inevitable. News. You want buzz.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Trump's saying, why should I take part of that? And if he's not going to be punished by his own voters for it, why should he?
But why did he do Bret Baier's interview? Based on the same logic of skipping the debates, why would he do the interview last night or last
week? Why does Joe Biden shun the traditional press conference in favor of one-on-one interviews? Because it's just enough to say, hey, I'm not hiding from the media. You got your shot to ask me questions. I'm here. You can kick the tires. But it's not as chaotic an environment where you're more likely to make some kind of gaffe or something unscripted or unprepared might happen that might make you look bad.
Hey, look, Donald Trump was made to look bad. Here's the other example, Bill. Did you see this? Bret Baier asked him about this woman that he pardoned for drug convictions. And Trump went on and on about, what a hero he was. This woman had been convicted of a nonviolent felony or all this stuff. I don't even know. And then Bret Baier says, well, under your policies, she would have been executed. Did you see that?
I did see that. And he didn't have a good answer for it. I mean, I think the good answer is, I think this should generally be the case, but as president, you have the power to look at individual cases and see if there's mitigating circumstances and exercise your pardon authority. There's a way to answer that he didn't do because he wasn't prepared for it. But again, this isn't a race about policy specifics, and so it's not going to, I think, be very damaging to him.
Trump was trying to play the role of, he was trying to sort of imply that, things we're over criminalizing everything, and the big bad government and police are coming in and harassing, people who maybe have had some problems in there. And then Bret Baier was like, yeah, but you want to execute.
I think Trump had this problem as president. There's a certain appetite in the Republican Party to be libertarian on criminal justice reform. It's somewhat fueled by the Koch network because they're big on that too. I think from Trump's vantage point, hey, I could poach some African American voters and some Latino voters by being kind of liberal on this. And he played it up in a big way at the convention in 2020. Look at the people I pardoned: Kim Kardashian coming in and Kanye West coming in and lobbying for certain people. And you could argue that it worked to some degree, that he improved with African Americans over the previous 4 years because he did that. But at the same time, they can't let go of their law and order. Democrats are presiding over riots in the cities and a lot of race tinged language as part of that. It was always very cognitively dissident the way they went about it. And so Clinton, obviously not enough to win the presidency again, but perhaps, you know, in terms of improving amongst African Americans, he improved. So perhaps the net of it wasn't a bad strategy for him. So it makes no sense when you look at it up close. Yeah. But I think it's not new for him to be caught in that in those crosswinds, cross currents.
All right. So just to sort of round up the debate topic, it sounds to me, Bill, like what you're saying is that debates matter and candidates can have a moment, and the most surefire way of doing it is to attack the media, attack the moderator. It's a pretty cheap thing, but it works.
I think like everything you said is true, except do debates matter is still kind of a asterisk, because all these people, they had their moments, they had opportunities that they created for themselves, but they still didn't win. They still couldn't really move the needle. It's extremely hard to dislodge an early primary frontrunner. As much as you want to mock early polling, they usually win. Especially when that frontrunner, like someone, well, Joe Lieberman was up in 2003, yeah, but not by a lot. Jeb Bush was up and up by a lot. You talk about people up with like big double digits.
Yeah,
very
and
unusual.
I would say, look, this is impossible to quantify, but Joe Lieberman never felt like the front runner or the plausible nominee, in my opinion.
Because he wasn't a dominating front runner. He had a certain amount of name ID because he was VP in 2000.
I don't think Jeb Bush, I mean, maybe to some people who were looking just at money, but I don't think Jeb Bush ever, I was thinking Rubio or Cruz.
He wasn't cracking 20%. I mean, look, yeah. I was big on Jeb Bush at the time, and I got been mocked mercilessly for it. But you look back and be like, okay, because I thought he had it just enough. I was going on the presumption that the establishment would consolidate around somebody to stop Trump, and Jeb had the most assets, money being one of them. And that proved the establishment proved feckless, and Jeb's initial perch was very narrow. He never had a dominating position. The only time I see on the Republican side when someone who had a double-digit early lead fell apart was Giuliani in 2007, and he fell apart when he got hit with this scandal that he was using government money to pay for his tryst with his mistress going to the.
But I never felt. I mean, again, totally anecdotal, impossible to quantify. But I covered that race. I was at townhall.com, and I was in New Hampshire and all over, and I never felt. Giuliani was, you're right, he was a very early, strong lead. I never felt that Giuliani was going to win the nomination.
Well, I mean, Giuliani, it was double digits.
He's so liberal on.
Well, that's definitely a factor here too. He had, even being up by double digits, it was always kind of tenuous because he was liberal on abortion and gay rights. So there was an opportunity to pop him, but McCain wasn't doing it and Fred Dalton Thompson wasn't doing it. It was that scandal that really drove the numbers down. And now, at the same years when Hillary Clinton had an early lead, significant lead over Barack Obama, but she also held a position on the Iraq War that was out of step with her party's base. And so that wasn't initially taking her down, but then she has a bad debate in late October where she gets tongue-tied around immigrants and driver's licenses, and her veracity is being questioned. And that gives Obama the opening to start moving ahead.
I think that's the one. Iowa. If you're looking for an example of that happening, I think that's the race. But I would also say Barack Obama is an incredibly talented politician. I don't think there's anyone in the Republican field today who's the politician that Barack Obama is.
Well, even in that race, after that October debate, the numbers moved in Iowa. They did not move nationally. Hillary was above Obama by well over 20 points still after that. It wasn't until Obama wins Iowa that this large segment of African-American voters nationally says, oh, you're for real, Barack. Now I'm going to swing over. And Obama closes a very large gap relatively quickly. So these are very specific, dynamics that in both the Giuliani and Clinton case that are not readily apparent in the current race. Trump's been hit with scandal after scandal after scandal, and the numbers don't move. So the net of it is, yeah, maybe someone can get a debate moment here, but historically speaking, that's not enough. You need a second, third, and fourth act after that. Punching the media is great, but at some point you got to punch the front runner. And Gingrich and Cruz were not as good at that. You mentioned the immigration case. I didn't sink him in South Carolina, but it wasn't enough to actually overtake Romney. And Cruz, when he got in the mud with Trump, that worked out very badly for Cruz. It's hard to stop a front runner. So I'm not saying I have the perfect game plan. I'm just saying the debate is where it's likely to begin, but you got to get something to do after that if you get that moment.
According to your self-imposed deadline, we have 5 minutes, and I think we should talk about Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
What's your take?
I mean, here's something I don't think the needle moves. If you're a conservative, this proves everything. Everything is weaponized. If you're a Trump conservative, it's all weaponized, and he got a sweetheart deal.
I want to set it up. So Hunter Biden this week, it basically took a plea bargain deal, right, with the Department of Justice. It was like a 5-year investigation, and it had to do with tax evasion, and it had to do with owning a gun. Nothing to do
lying on his application for the gun.
Nothing to do with what I think is the big questions having to do with money, and
which I believe were investigated in this by the prosecutor.
Well, I mean, I don't know all the details. I will tell you that the sense among Republicans is that this is a sweetheart deal, and that the goal was to basically put the real substantive problems behind him, and that this is kind of a corrupt deal. Now, it's harder to make that case considering that I believe the prosecutor was from a holdover from the Trump administration.
Right. And then Garland and Biden said, "Do your thing, your hands off."
But by the same token, I do think it's problematic that Biden kept publicly saying my son is guilty of nothing. I mean,
yeah, I think Biden should have kept his mouth shut.
Big time.
He should have just said there's an investigation underway, and I can't speak about an ongoing investigation. Obviously, he didn't do that, but nevertheless, there's very little argument that this is an unusual result. I mean, is the conservative argument that people should have stiffer punishments for tax evasion and gun ownership? I mean, this is usually Republicans are saying that IRS agents should be abolished, and people say
I think there's a perception that it's like a smokescreen, that it's a diversion from the real problematic issues that are now being investigated by Republicans.
Well, they have the House, they have subpoena authority. They can investigate and see if they can find something on Hunter on these other matters. Show us you have some role here. Show us the evidence. Right now, they just talk about speculation, and they haven't actually shown any smoking guns. And in comparison to Trump, I mean, these are total apples and oranges. I mean, they're different crimes. Number one, there's no argument that Hunter is getting a lighter deal than someone else who was not the son of a president would have got. If anything, arguably,
I'm not sure that's true. Well,
show me the case.
This way. It seems to me that this is the kind of deal. I'm not saying that he got a lighter deal because his dad is president, but this is the kind of deal you get when you are rich and hire good lawyers who are able to negotiate this kind of a plea bargain.
I mean, he was late on his taxes. He paid them with fees already. And he lied about
it was like $1 million or something. And I think
I'm not aware of other people. I mean, if you have the examples, great. I mean, of course, if you're back on $1 million in taxes, you probably are a wealthy person who could hire lawyers.
Where'd the $1 million come from?
I mean, we know he had work.
Yeah, but Where did all that money come? What kind of
I
work was he
don't
doing to make
know.
that much money? How much money do you have to make to owe $1 million in taxes that you're not
Ask
paying?
Donald Trump. It's not like he's unaware of how one evades taxes.
Now who's engaging in otherism or
Well,
whatever
Donald
it is?
Trump, we have. I mean, we
I
have evidence
agree
of
that
tax
Donald
evasion.
Trump's
Donald Trump,
horrible, but
he's
this is
not in
about.
he's not in jail for tax evasion, is he?
He probably should be, but we're talking
But
about
he's
Hunter
not.
Biden
But
now
he's not. He's not been treated worse
because he's a
than Hunter
rich
Biden.
guy who gets away with stuff.
The
Look,
whole argument is that everyone's mean to Trump and nice to everybody else.
this is not about Donald Trump. I mean, I guess the Republican, I think where you're going with this is that Republicans are saying, see this as an example of how our Justice Department is corrupt and there's a double standard.
Yeah, yeah,
Republicans get arrested and held to a higher standard than Democrats. I
right.
am not
Uh,
making that
uh,
argument.
well,
That's not my argument.
okay, let's stay on that because I think that is the main argument that we're seeing out in the world. And it doesn't account for the fact that Pence got off on having secret docs just like Biden did for similar reasons. They were seen as inadvertent mistakes and they hand the documents back over. Hunter plea bargained.
Yeah.
If Trump asked for a plea bargain and did not get it because no, we want to throw your ass in jail. Okay, but Trump's not trying to get the plea bargain. He didn't try to hand over the documents and plead for mercy. He kept them. He evaded the investigators, and he's still being defiant. So guess what? You go to court. That's what happens. Like if you want to get the Hunter treatment, go try to get the Hunter treatment. Have your lawyers plea bargain a deal. See if you can get probate. I just myself personally, I don't care if Trump's in jail. If he got a light sentence, if he got something, this is an unusual set of circumstances, fine, whatever. But he's not even trying to do that. He keeps making his situation worse and worse on his own. You can't blame the Trump-appointed prosecutor for treating Hunter differently when Trump is not doing what he should do to take care of himself.
I think that's fair, and it would be interesting. And I heard John Podhoretz make this case on his commentary podcast, but in a way, it would be like brilliant jujitsu if Trump did plea bargain at this point the documents case. What would people say? That would actually be maybe the most.
I mean, it's much
brilliant
harder now because the prosecutors could legitimately say, we got a lot of evidence on you. We don't need a plea bargain. We think we can convict you.
Well, but then it really would look at like a double standard if they refuse to cooperate, to negotiate.
Yeah, I mean, that might squeeze them more and feel like, okay, we got to play ball here.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're over time for your heart out.
Yes.
Anything you want to plug though, real quick?
Just be on the lookout for that piece in the monthly, which is not quite up yet. Otherwise, plug away. I think you got something coming out. Something.
I do.
An article? What is it?
The book. If you can't tell behind me, there are many copies. I finally got it. They sent me the hard copy of my book, Bill, in the mail. It's pretty cool when you get that physical book in the mail. But it's out July 18th. Filthy Rich Politicians. You go to filthyrichbook.com and pre-order today.
All right. Are we doing this next week? I forget what your schedule is.
Let's talk right after this, but I hope we will.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a week after I'm going to be gone.
Okay. Well, I'm sure I'll probably be out some this week, including my book launch week. But I think it sounds like what you're saying is that we will see you back here in the DMZ next week.
Yes.
Have a good one.
Take care.